I truly believe what's been going on with Ben Simmons the past 2 to 3 seasons, it needs to be studied by professional doctors, because the last time we saw something like this happen, it was in the original Space Jam movie, and that was supposed to be fake. Do y'all remember in Space Jam? And by the way, I'm not talking about that reboot Space Jam with LeBron James. I'm talking about the OG Space Jam with Michael Jordan. There will only be one Space Jam. When I say Space Jam, I'm talking about the original. But anyways, I digress. That's besides the point. Do y'all remember that one scene when Charles Barkley, he's out there and those, I guess you'd call them little aliens, are going, oh man, Charles Barkley's killing it. Let's steal his talent. Y'all remember that scene, right? Because those little aliens were wanting to steal the talent from some of the best basketball players out there. Charles Barkley is literally in the middle of a game, and out of nowhere, they go inside him, take his talent, and he can't even catch a pass. And everybody in the stands, his teammates, his coach is like, yo, what in the heck are you doing? What's going on out there? So Charles Barkley, he takes some time away from the game, and he starts having all these crazy tests run on him, and he starts talking to, I guess you'd say, a therapist, and that goes on for several months. Or not a therapist, I know the word I'm looking for. He was talking to a sports psychiatrist. They're trying to figure out what's going on because the only thing that makes sense is it's mental. It's in his head. And all the sports psychiatrists he talks to, they're telling him the same thing. They're like, man, it's just in your head. You got to get back out there. And then a couple months later, he's walking down the street by a local park and a kid sees him and is like, yo, you're Charles Barkley. And Charles Barkley goes, yeah, so can I play? And they're like, yeah, come on, let's go. And Barkley starts running pickup with these kids and he's terrible yet again. And the kids are destroying him. And they're like, yo, you're not Charles Barkley. Get out of here. And the one that sticks with me the most is they told him to be gone. I've always loved Space Jam. In my entire life, I thought to myself, man, wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be crazy if one of the best basketball players in the entire world randomly just forgot how to play and lost all of his talent? Wouldn't it be absolutely crazy if a guy who is loved by everybody and a star in the NBA eventually was hated by all the fans? I never in a million years thought something like that could happen up until the Ben Simmons situation. I want you to try to tell me what has happened to Ben Simmons and what is currently unfolding in front of our two eyes isn't eerily similar to the Space Jam. I remember not too long ago, this guy had a very strong fan base at Philadelphia. I'm not going to say they deemed him as the chosen one, but a lot of people had his back. They thought he was one of the best players in the NBA. And it wasn't for some random reason. He was a really great and outstanding player. Although me, myself, I haven't been too big of a fan of him because I feel like he doesn't work on his shooting ability and he should be able to fix that. But the point is, in his prime, which was 3 years ago, he was one of the best defenders in the league and he was great at everything else. I don't want to say he was LeBron James-esque, but he had a similar play style, 6'9", and could do everything except for shoot. And now LeBron's in his later stages of his prime, although he's still super athletic. Ben Simmons was way more athletic than him 3 or 4 years ago. Regardless of how you feel about Mr. Ben Simmons, and I know it is very easy to hate on him now. Why? Because everybody's doing it. Everybody wants to jump on the hate train now, but I'm going to remind you guys, only 3 or 4 years ago, many people thought Ben Simmons was going to dominate the NBA for 15 more years to come. Many people thought Ben Simmons was a generational talent, and at the time, he was. 6'9" point guard, and it's not like, okay, he's a small forward playing the point guard position like Giannis does sometimes. No, Ben Simmons actually had point guard skills. It's absurd, it really is. If Ben Simmons would have worked on his jump shot, I'm not saying he had to shoot lights out, but if he could just hit threes every now and then, he would have went down as one of the greatest players to ever play the game. Think about it. He was already unreal, and he couldn't even shoot. But what's extremely weird about all of this is I remember 2-3 years ago when these videos were floating around the internet where Ben Simmons at local practices and runs, he was hitting back-to-back threes. I know some of y'all remember what I'm talking about. I've seen videos where Ben Simmons can actually shoot the three ball, but in the game, he would never do it. I get it, game pressure, it's different, but I always found that a little fishy. Keep that in the back of your mind. We'll talk about that a little later. Getting on track with the main reason I'm making this video, yesterday the news came out that Ben Simmons probably is not going to join the team for the rest of the season. In other terms, he's out for the year. You may be sitting there wondering, yo, Matt, why is he out for the year? And it's for the same BS, and I'm going to call it the same BS injury they've been telling us for the past 3 years. It's his back or it's his knee. It's always something, but more times than not, they're always throwing back in there. And here's what I want y'all to understand for the people that are saying, Matt, are you calling Ben Simmons a liar? He's hurt. You don't know nothing about him. Let me explain. When he first came out and said, oh, my back's bothering me, I'm taking some time away, I was okay with it. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. But he's been using that same excuse, and I'm using it as an excuse. He's been using that for the past 2 to 3 years. I'm sorry, I'm not sorry. I cannot and I will not give him the benefit of the doubt on this situation anymore. I've waited to speak on this for nearly 2.5, 3 years. I've never spoke about it because I was one of the people who was going, okay, Maybe it is a little bit fishy, but let's just give him some time. He'll put it back together. Well, here's my question. How much time do you need? LeBron James is getting hurt and nipped up, banged up every other night, and he's still fighting to get back out there, and he's back by a month or two. I'm not the biggest AD fan in the world, but same thing for Anthony Davis. I know everybody's going to say, oh yeah, look at Anthony Davis, haha, he's injury prone. But he's still fighting to get back out there, and that's why I respect him. The difference with Ben Simmons is there's no urgency. He's not fighting to get back out there. You can tell with Anthony Davis, he loves the game to a certain extent, and he misses being out there. With Ben Simmons, even when he's played recently, it's like, what am I watching? He is playing nearly 30 minutes, let me repeat that, 30 minutes per game. And you know how many points he's averaging? Guess. 6.9. We're talking about a guy who I said 6'9" earlier. That was understating it. He is dang near 7 feet tall. And you're averaging 6.9 points per game in the NBA? Can somebody explain it to me? I would love to know, because Austin Reeves, a guy for the Lakers, he's only 6'2", 6'3", and he's killing it. I truly believe what's been going on with Ben Simmons the past 2 to 3 seasons, it needs to be studied by professional doctors, because the last time we saw something like this happen, it was in the original Space Jam movie, and that was supposed to be fake. Let's take a look at where things started. Where did everything start to go downhill? In 2020, 2021, that playoff run. In the playoff run, Ben Simmons was playing good, but what flipped the switch? What happened? That one play where he passed the ball, where he had the wide open dunk and Trae Young was standing right beside him. That's the play that stirred up everything. Joel Embiid said something about it. They wound up losing the game, and Doc Rivers sort of threw Ben Simmons under the bus. Ben Simmons didn't really like that, so he locked out. He sat out and he was like, I don't care. I'm not playing for the Sixers. I'm not even showing up to practice. They disrespected me. I'll show them. And that's cool. I get it. Even at the time, I was like, he's kind of being a prick. I understood it. There's the big back and forth with the Sixers and Ben Simmons. He's like, hey, I'm not showing up. Y'all got to pay me this money. And then they're like, oh, well, we're not paying you anything. Then Ben Simmons, he shows up to practice, and then he gets kicked out right away. All that goes on, and to make a really, really, really long story and just bizarre story short, Ben Simmons, he gets what he wanted. They trade him. They trade him to the Brooklyn Nets. That's what he wanted. It was supposed to be, okay, I'm going to the Nets, I'm going to start playing, and we're going to forget all this ever happened. And yet, ever since he's got to the Nets, I remember it. It was like, oh, he'll be playing in a couple of weeks, and a couple of weeks go by, and it's like, oh, well, he'll be back in a couple of weeks, and a couple more weeks go by, and it's just an endless cycle. He didn't play the entire season. Then the Brooklyn Nets, they get into the playoffs, and then there's rumors going on, oh, well, Ben Simmons is going to try to come back by game 4, and then game 4 comes around, and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, he's not playing. And then most recently, he comes back this current season where he's appeared in 42 games, started 33, and he's playing about 26, nearly 30 minutes per game, and he's only averaging 6.9 points. I haven't even looked at his other numbers because it doesn't matter, but okay, right here, 6.1 assists per game and 6.3 rebounds. And he's shooting 56.6% from the field, and of course 0% from the three-point line, because we all know he doesn't shoot threes. Don't even look at the stats. Who cares about the stats? I know they look bad, but the point is, when I watch him play, he doesn't look the same. He doesn't look as confident as he used to be. And I don't want to downplay a back injury, but I will say this, it just seems extremely convenient that this back injury, I'm not going to say it's fake, but this back injury, all these problems started happening right after the incident with the 76ers. What it seems like to me is that's his scapegoat to not working hard and not improving his shooting abilities. What it seems like to me is whenever Ben Simmons isn't playing that good, he's like, oh yeah, well, my back's kind of bothering me, so maybe I should sit out a couple of games and get that fixed. I've gotten to the point where I'm done with this situation. I'm done with Ben Simmons. I don't think he'll ever be back to what he once was. And it's sad, it really is. I don't know what you personally want to blame this on, but I know exactly what to blame it on. It's a lack of effort. He doesn't want to work hard, and he already feels like he's made it in life. He's already got all the money in the world, so he doesn't need to prove anything to anybody. And last but not least, he seems like a crybaby to me. He seems like a guy where things, when they don't go his way, he doesn't fight against adversity. He just says, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to just go over here and cry. You know what, 76ers? I don't need y'all. I'm going to go over to the Brooklyn Nets. They'll value me. They'll take care of me. In conclusion, I'm chopping it up to this. This has got to be a mental problem, and it's got to be studied by doctors. And I know a lot of you are going to be like, haha, good one, Matt. That's funny. I'm not joking. I'm being serious. Mentally, something is not right with this man. It's not. That's where I stand on it. Let me know your thoughts down below. But,